bada boom, bada bang, bada bop. I don't know how to do the bada boom, bada bang with the race medal, but we are back in Mint Hill today. Finished my marathon yesterday. It didn't go exactly according to plan, but you know what they say? The only L's in life are lessons and learning. So today I'm going to share 10 lessons and learnings that hopefully can help you in your training. Now, if you are looking for some training insights, you are in the right place, but an even better place would be the Supwell app, because the Supwell app is the best community of hobby joggers getting after it daily. We have a race calendar where you can put in all your races coming up and get connected with the community of hobby joggers getting after it. We have training forums where you can post any questions related to training, nutrition, fueling, shoes, and of course we have the best gosh dang buy, sell, and trade marketplace out there. If you're looking to save money on running shoes, maybe get a deal on a shoe like I just so happen to have this one right here. Let me just hold it up. Nike Vomero Premium. If you want a great deal on a shoe like this, a hobby jogger often will buy a shoe like this. It doesn't work for them. Maybe they put a run on it, 2 runs on it, listed on the app well below MSRP, and pass along a deal. So if you're looking for a new community of hobby joggers, sickos, to improve your running, join up and enjoy today's video. Back in Mint Hill, baby. Sometimes the modern, or the marvel of modern travel, the beauty of modern travel, it just amazes me. It surprises me. These are the things that I don't take for granted, man. The ability to run a marathon halfway across the country, or at least 7 states up the eastern seaboard, and it's not that far away, Massachusetts and North Carolina, but to do that yesterday and then be on a plane this morning at 7 a.m. and be back in North Carolina before lunchtime is pretty amazing, man. I don't take it for granted. Just like I don't take for granted walking. Look at this. Walking down my driveway, 2 healthy legs. Not fresh. Not fresh legs. My watch did tell me I have a 1 recovery score today. Yeah, my Garmin literally said my recovery score was a 1. That's the lowest it can be. I guess that's what happens when you run a marathon and get terrible sleep and your stress score is high. By the way, I'm thinking of switching back to Coros. I was looking at the Apex and I was looking at the, what's the other one? The Peak or the Pace Pro. I was looking at those. If you have any experience with those, let me know. I'm not too big into the tech. It's just this Garmin. I don't know. I've never loved it, and I was thinking this is a good a time as any to switch because I just ran a race and I don't need all my data from last block anymore. So let me know if you have any experience with the Apex or the Pace Pro. Now, what I wanted to do today, we are back in Mint Hill. I'm not running today, or probably not running today. If I do, it will be a 1 mile recovery run in the New Balance More V5 or something like that. So what I wanted to do is share 10 learnings, 10 things I learned from my marathon. Where is it? Where's my little thing? Here we go. I wear every single chain even when I'm in the house. That's not up in the bottom, now we here. Start up in the bottom, and the whole thing here. There we go. 10 things I learned from my 10th marathon. So there it is, Bay State Marathon. And by the way, 10th marathon. I was counting. Now I'm counting every single time I've run the marathon distance. So I was going back. Should I put this on? I should probably put it on. Well, it's kind of tight. Yeah, every single time I ran the marathon distance. So Charlotte 2022. Then I did a sub 3 time trial around my neighborhood, ran a 2:56, 2024. That was the beginning of last year. Then I ran Coast Guard 2:49. I ran a marathon in the Adios Pro 3 around my neighborhood. I ran a marathon in the Nike Epic React around my neighborhood. I ran a marathon in the Nike Streak Fly around my neighborhood. I ran a 30-mile long run in the Evo SL around my neighborhood. I did an ultra marathon in the West Virginia mountains. I did Chicago last year, and then I did this. Maybe I'm missing one. So that's 5 timed marathons and 5 other ones that I did just for fun. I'm of the mind that anytime you run 26.2 miles, you could say you ran a marathon. And somebody actually asked me when I was hanging out with my mom's friends, his name was Mike Wormwood, he asked me, how many marathons have you run? And I said, I started doing the internet runner thing, the keyboard elite thing. Well, I've run 5 time ones every. He said, I don't care. Just tell me how many times have you run the distance. Anytime you run it counts. So at least 10. I might be missing one time where I've done just a random 26 or 27 mile long run, but 10 marathons, 10 things I learned. So this was a tough one. It was not what I wanted. I was going for, with this block, I was training for sub 2:30. There were some times in the block where I was on pace. There were some times in the block where I was very close, but off pace. I think realistically, looking back at it yesterday, my marathon pace yesterday was right around a 5:52 per mile, and if I had paced it well, I could have run a 2:33, and that's always the hard thing, right? I could have done this, I could have done that, but my first 10 were very clean, all around 5:50. I picked it up here and there. I got to the midway point, and I was off pace for my A goal, which was a sub 2:30, and that's where I just lost the focus and lost the fight mentally. So I'll get into more of that later, but I finished this one at a 2:42, which is 3 minutes slower than last year's PR. And one thing I wanted to say here for myself and for everyone else who's watching, if you have a bad race and it's hard with the marathon because you only get 1 or 2, maybe 3 chances max if you really pack them in per year to go all out racing. So let's say 3 chances max. Most people do 2 chances. It's really hard if you have 2 shots per year at getting a PR or getting to the next level of your fitness. It's hard to not feel like it's 6 months of wasted effort or a year of wasted effort, and not even just wasted effort, but just, oh, I'm a 2:42 marathoner now. That's not how it works. You didn't lose, and even if I never ran a 2:39, it's not like I have to start training at a 2:42 marathon level and slow all my training paces down by 30 seconds per mile. No, all the work that I did, all the work that you did, if you had a bad race before, it still counts. Your body still banks that fitness. The race is just like the test, right? And that's the hard thing about school. Even if you learned, you could still fail the test. And there's so many things that you learn in school that don't show up. And I think that's one of the reasons why I don't always race a lot, because it's not my satisfaction with running. But I think that's the important thing to remember with the race. You don't lose all of that fitness. Anyway, let us get into the 10 things. I got my laptop here because I took some notes on it last night. I weigh every single chain, even when I'm in a house. Oh no, it's on my other laptop. One for work and one for work. That's what Kevin said the other day. All right, man. Here we go. So yesterday, I know I was in sad boy mode. I was beating myself up. All that, everything I said is still true and valid, and that's how I was feeling. But I wanted to do some more training insights, or some training insights here. So I have some just based on this block and based on the last 3 years that I've spent grinding away at the marathon. Things that I have learned that not necessarily are universal truths. Not that. I'm going to blame it on, of course, I ran a marathon yesterday. I don't feel as trashed as I normally do, weirdly. But also, I was traveling. And you know when you're on the plane, the altitude really gets to your brain. So I'm fresh off the plane, man. I just landed an hour ago. I ran inside to use the bathroom and drop some gifts off on the table for the kids. They're not here right now. So that's why if I'm a little loopy, it's because I'm a little loopy. So yeah, not necessarily universal truths, but things that I have learned within my training that I wanted to share with you based on the results of this race and also based on this entire training block. So let's kick it off with number 1. This is a mouthy one. It's not sexy, but here we go. The best marathon training is long race pace tempos during high mileage week. That is the number 1 thing that I learned this block because, man, for me, the marathon is so mental, and there's a lot of it that's physical, but being able to get out there when you're running peak mileage or close to peak mileage, maybe you're 80% of your peak mileage, 90%, and grind out 10 miles at marathon pace, 12 miles at marathon pace, 14 miles at marathon pace with 1 or 2 miles at threshold. Being able to do that during marathon training prepares you so well for the marathon, prepares you so well for the feeling of being halfway through and saying, gosh dang, I have 13 miles to go. It prepares you so well for being at mile 17 and saying, gosh dang, how do I still have 9 miles to go? It prepares you so well for being tired and fatigued at mile 19 and not wanting to push on. And this block, you know how many of those I did? 0. And the reason I did 0 of those is because I was moving my long run during the week. A lot of the time, because of how my travel schedule is set up, I was moving my long run, and so I was shifting the type of midweek workout I would have to do to accommodate also having the long run. Now, I don't think I would necessarily do anything different. It was just the way things lined up, but having the long runs in, it's A/B testing, right? And I think that's one of the things that I'm saying, man, this is actually a teachable moment, and I've gotten some learnings because this was very imperfect at the end, but it just goes to show A/B testing. You do things one way and you do things the other way. So last year I did a ton of those long runs with big race pace tempos, 10, 12, 14 miles in them. I actually did one long run with a 10-mile tempo in it, but it was way earlier in the block, and I did that toward the beginning of the run, not the middle to the end. But anyway, that is the best preparation, mental, and then also just the physical, being able to run the pace on tired legs, internalizing the pace. And yeah, my marathon pace was closer to the 540s, closer or earlier on in the block. And then because my training got blown up, the 550 was where it shook out toward the end. But it's also, if you're doing those high mileage long run tempos, you can't hide. You can't lie about your marathon pace. They will reveal to you the truth of where your marathon pace is, which brings me to learning number 2 from this race, which is the 16-mile tempo does not lie. The 16-mile tempo does not lie, man. This was a tough one. So one of the pillars of my marathon training, which I've been doing for the past few years, is doing a 16-mile race pace tempo a few weeks before the race. And again, this was a tricky one for me because I was traveling. I got COVID. I tried to do it once when I still had COVID. I did it the next week. And both of the times I was doing it, I couldn't hang on to 540 pace. Now, there's other variables going into it. How was my physical state? Was I sick? Was the heat bad? We have hills out here. Of course, But last year when I did Chicago, I nailed that 16-mile tempo at 7 seconds faster than marathon pace. Nice clean splits with a good positive split progression at the end. Also, earlier on in the block, before I hit the just crazy travel and everything that was going on in the last month, I hit a nice clean 14 at a 5:37 pace, and that effort did not feel too high, and the heart rate was not too high. Right, so doing that 16-mile tempo, some people are pro, some people are anti because of the recovery. I know that my recovery from things like that is generally pretty good, and I was able to recover and still get back out there. I was able to recover from the 14. I was able to recover from the 16. But if you look at the splits of the 16-mile tempo, it really mirrored my experience with the race, and it also just indicated where my marathon pace should have been. So that was actually one of the factors that went into me not going out at sub 2:30 pace, and why I went out more conservatively at this race. And I know from my race day splits, it doesn't look like I went out conservatively because it tanked, but 5:50, it felt not light, but it felt decently okay. And if you look at my heart rate, the effort also is very well within where I will typically race. I can race a marathon in the 170s for heart rate, and I averaged 161 here because I pulled it way back in the back half. But for the first 10 miles or so, my average heart rate was 150 something. So running very within myself at that 5:50. So that's why I love doing that 16-mile tempo. Not only is it a fitness builder, not only is it a confidence builder if you nail it, but it tells you what your marathon pace should be. If you are wildly off like I was and just fading in the back half, and I was giving it my all, man. I think on that day that I was in the Alpha Fly, I was fighting for my life on the back half, and I think that tempo might have been physically toward the back half with the 6:20s just as hard as some races, just in terms of being able to lock in. So yeah, that told me I came out way too hot, and to really hone in on where my race pace is. And if you think the 16 is too long, other coaches will do 3x5. That's a classic one. So 3 sets of 5 miles within a long run. There's also other things you could do, like what I just recommended, the Daniels thing, which 14 straight with 2 at threshold in between. But something about that 16, it just really works well for me. And last year, it just gave me a ton of confidence going into the race. I think the downside was that not hitting it, there's the risk of losing confidence. All right, number three, 10 things I learned. The third is peak mileage. So this season, this block, I peaked at 140 miles per week. I actually felt like that was reasonable given my last year for Chicago, I peaked at 130 miles per week, and I think my average highest month was about 130. So that's a decent progression right there. If you could run your 1 week peak for an entire month a year later, you're solid. And that's why, and I don't want to talk about the detractors too much. My mom told me yesterday, don't focus so much on the negative, so I'm not going to. But what you have to realize is mileage is so relative, and my body responds very well to high mileage. And so running 100 or 110 miles per week for me at this point, it doesn't feel super taxing. That's just the reality. So going up to 130, yeah, it's challenging, but what's really going to be the main variable is the workouts I'm doing. And so this block, my plan was to go up to 140, come back down when I did my birthday trip and went to the Berkshires, and then ramp back up when I came back home. But because I got COVID from the Berkshires trip, I wasn't able to recover, and I could have tried to run 130 miles that week, but it just would have been miserable. So that took the wind out of the sails. And just looking back at last year and how I had periodized my training then and how I set up my highest mileage weeks then, perfect execution was 4 to 5 weeks out peaking. So again, everyone's going to be different. That's what works for me. Peak mileage 4 to 5 weeks out. Also, just running consistently high mileage throughout the block, moderately high mileage throughout the block, which again at the end I wasn't able to do. Bummer. All right, number 4. Very similar. Detraining occurs within 3 weeks. So this is one where for a long time I've been running 100 miles a week for 2 years, and I can't remember the last time I ran 3 or 4 weeks straight without running 100 miles. And this is what I'm saying. My body's just adapted to it. I just run 100 miles all the time. It's like brushing my teeth or coming down here to the shoe or the mailbox, holding a shoe in my hand and looking wild. It's just something I do. Right, so going below 100 miles a week, that's where I'm actually in a danger of throwing things out of whack. I felt really off at lower mileage levels. I didn't quite feel how I wanted to. But I found 3 weeks out, that's where I started seeing it in the metrics. My resting heart rate not being as low, I wasn't having those same high mileage gains. My heart rate on my aerobic runs was slightly higher. And this was even before I came into that last taper week. But detraining for me occurs in 3 weeks. So it's going to be different for everyone. And the longer you've been running, the longer you can hold on to those aerobic gains. The shorter you've been running, the quicker you will lose those gains. I was reading this in one of the books the other day. It was either the Hudson book or the Tim Noakes book or the Fitzinger book. It was one of those three. But most coaches agree, right? The longer you've been running, the bigger base you have, the quicker you can, or the longer you can hold on to those gains. So someone who's been running for 10 years, maybe it would take them a month. Versus me, I've been running for 5 years. I've only been running high mileage for 2 years. I really feel the effects of pulling the mileage down within 3 weeks. So that's why nailing the taper is so important. And the goal of the taper is not to completely feel 100% fresh and rested. It's to reduce the training volume enough so that you can give it a good go and fight. And so last year I did more of a 10-day taper, a 2-week taper. That's the other thing for here. Number 5, the best taper is 2 weeks. And I'll just say for me, I can share my best taper. The best taper for me for the marathon, 2 weeks. Week 1, 80%. Week 2, or 85%. Week 2, 70%. And that could be the weekly average of the highest month. So if you're clipping off 80 miles a week, you could do 85% of that week 2 and then 70% going in. So I ended this week with 82 miles. That actually was fine on the last week, but the week previous, because the week previous I ran 55 miles, which is one of my lowest mileage weeks of the year. I've probably run 50. I think I ran 53 miles in July and occasionally do that. So for me, running 55 miles, that is way too low. That was just life circumstances, and not every block can be ideal, and that is okay. And I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to see this through. My mom was asking me yesterday, she said, why did you decide to go through with this race? And of course I wanted to see her, and I wanted to go back home to Lowell, Mass. But she was asking me, what was the reason you decided to see it through and not drop out? And one of the reasons was I couldn't find another marathon that felt like a good attempt. The other was I wasn't sure if doing 3 to 6 weeks more training would get me to a sub 230 level. And based on how I felt yesterday, I still don't know. But the main reason was just it didn't feel right to pull out. It felt like taking the easy way out. It felt like, just from a running standpoint, it just felt like quitting and not seeing it through. So even though the training wasn't perfect, I think it's good that I saw it through, and there's always going to be a lesson. All right, number 6, mindset matters. This is a tough one. Yeah, I was not at my best mentally going into this race, and it's just tough because I get so annoyed when people point it out, but I can point it out in myself too. Yeah, I wasn't feeling confident. My training didn't set me up for confidence. I feel like I lost my swag going into it. But at the same time, I could have run and pushed for a PR. And I think one of the issues was once I got deeper into that race, because my mindset wasn't there, it was just hard for me to push, and I let it go. And so the mindset is so big. We know this time and time again, and I saw it out there too. It wasn't just in me. You see people at mile 20, 21, 22 running strong. You see others walking. You see people who are able to pick up the pace when they get pulled along by their friends or when they cheer. And someone cheering you on, that's not giving you any more glycogen in your muscles. That's not giving you an extra carbon plate in your shoe. It's not giving you an extra 30 miles a week of training in July. It's a mental boost, right? The mindset is so important. So yeah, practice running moderately hard in a bad mood. Practice running marathon pace a ton. That's why I'm so big on just focusing on the race pace training during the marathon peak block, because if you can run marathon pace, and this is what I did, my best training block ever, it was last year in Chicago. If you can run marathon pace any day of the week, and no matter how you're feeling, it's gonna be a lot easier to just push through and hold on race day. And I think also the uncertainty of what marathon pace is or should be is a tough one as well, because then you're thinking, am I too slow? Am I too fast? And that's something I identified last year, about a month in or a year and a half ago, when I ran Coast Guard in 2:49. I didn't have a marathon pace going into it, and I just was gonna feel it out on race day, and then that went terribly. Very similar looking splits to today, actually, where I was strong in the beginning and then faded out in the back. And having a marathon pace is so helpful for just knowing, I'm gonna run this, I'm gonna train at this pace, and on race day, I know I can hold it no matter how I'm feeling. The challenge is when those difficulties pop up and when adversity pops up in the race. So number 7 here was actually on adversity. And it's good to deal with adversity. This was the 10th or the 7th thing I learned from this race. Yeah, I think sometimes for me, I think I don't have to go through hard things anymore. I went through hard things in the past. That's not how life works. And I don't think that's how I want life to work. The reason I like running is for the challenge of it, man. I've shared this story before, but I feel like I need to tell it again. I used to just run half marathon time trials, 10K time trials, 5K time trials by myself when I had the Nike Run Club app, when I didn't even have Strava, before I even knew about signing up for races, just because of the challenge of it, because of giving myself something to reach for, to strive for, and to achieve. And of course, it's not a huge adversity. It's not dealing with the loss of a loved one or struggling to make ends meet, but having these small challenges in life, that's what makes it worth it. That's what helps us keep going. And I do think having the small challenges and working through them make us more capable of handling the big challenges. So yeah, I'm doing some PR spinning on a terrible, not personal record, public relations, PR spinning. But I do think we can, take any of these challenges and learn from them. And the number one thing that I learned from this race is I was going to save this for the end, but I'll say it right now. I will always fight for a PR after this. And the adversity of this race was just, I came through the half at 1:16:30. And so to run a sub 2:30, I would have needed to be way 1:15. And so that was way out at that point. But just having that slip away completely altered my mental state and my focus. When I came through the half and finally looked at the duration on the watch, and I saw that was gone, and I just knew what I had worked for wasn't within reach, and I didn't fight. So up until this point, I've always been very a goal or bust, right? I'm running this race to complete a mission, whether it's a time or another goal, a goal or bust. Sometimes the a goal can be completing the race, but yesterday my a goal was sub 2:30 for this entire year, for this entire block. I knew the chances of accomplishing that were very slim yesterday based on my previous training of the past month. However, I still could have PR'd, and the PR was in reach for pretty much the entire race. I could have pushed for a PR at mile 20. I could have pushed for a PR from mile 18, but I just didn't have the fight. So that's my learning from this race, man. Always fight for a PR, because guess what? It's not easy to get a PR. Now I have to recover for 2 to 3 weeks. It's not just as easy as signing up for another race. There's no guarantees. I think that's what I'm bummed about the most, just knowing I could have fought. And it's easy to say, oh yeah, of course I could have gotten a PR. It was easy, but I do know it was there for me, and I just mentally was jogging it in, just mentally not fighting, mentally not pushing at the end, which was tough. So that's my learning and my takeaway. Before, I've told this story, but before in 2022, I dropped out of a half marathon because I got lost and DQ'd. Some guy said, "You're going to get DQ'd." So I dropped. I quit. And Mason asked me why I quit, and she was super sad about it. And so from that point on, I said, I'm never going to quit again in another race. And I didn't quit yesterday. I finished, which is why I have this. But I didn't fight my hardest. So this is what I was thinking in the plane. This is the next level of DQ for me. Yeah, I got myself to the finish line physically, but mentally I didn't execute how I would have. This is what I was saying about the 16-mile tempo being harder than a lot of races. I was actually thinking, man, I think I fought harder on that 16-mile tempo where I averaged 5:47 than I did on the back half of that race yesterday. Just mentally, I wasn't fighting, and it was a mental error. It was a mental mistake. But that's what I'm saying about adversity. I wouldn't be in this place now and able to say and hopefully pass on to other people the lesson of always fight for that PR. And it sounds simple. Maybe it is simple for some people, but it's a hard thing to do once your goal is out the window, just to keep fighting and to keep scrapping. Man, I have so much respect for Floberg, who ran a 7-second PR at Chicago. 7 seconds, man. And he shared a video on his Instagram of himself just struggling. And he said this was the hardest point of the race. You could just see it on his face. He looks like he's given up. He looks like a sad Labrador retriever. And he said his friend told him, dude, you can still PR. And this is what I'm saying about the mental thing. His friend told him you could still PR. So that he picked it up and ran a 7-second PR. That is so tough to do, running a 7-second PR, because I'm sure he wanted to run much faster, but he didn't quit on the race. Mentally, he didn't quit on the race, and he fought for it, and he got that 7-second PR. So, man, I think in the past I've devalued PRs for myself personally that weren't as big as I wanted them to be, but just being able to improve, and especially yesterday, if I would have been able to fight, I would have felt a lot better. But I have this lesson now. I'm always going to fight to do the best I can on that day. And the best I could have done yesterday, probably sub 235. And the best I could have done after pushing for a sub 240 and not having it was probably a PR. I could have done that, and I didn't. I just mentally didn't fight. So that's my learning. Always fight for a PR, or always fight to do my best. It's not always going to be a PR because, of course, your fitness might not always be PR, or the course might be rainy or whatever, but always fight mentally to do my best. Sometimes it's a lot harder than others, though, and I will say, just to give myself some grace here, and this is something I've felt in the past too, I almost feel willpower is a finite resource. And you can build willpower, you can build mental toughness, mental fortitude, you can build that stick-to-itiveness through training. But if you're just consistently coming up against challenges in life related to running, but more so not related to running, it really can drain your mental willpower. And for me, I find I don't run well when I have life stressors. Some people do. Some people run well without doing perfectly executed training. Some people run well when they're not in a great mental space. I do not, and I let that come through yesterday. Planned diversion. Number 8, talking about fueling. So fueling every 30 minutes is a good system. I just reinforced that from this race. My fueling was on point. Also, the Mortons were on point. I didn't talk much about this yesterday. Also didn't talk much yesterday about the actual race itself. So I did want to give a shout out to Bay State Marathon because it was so well organized. It was a double loop of a 13.1 for the marathon, and there were orange cones marking the entirety of the race. There were 13.1 miles of orange cones every 3 to 5 yards. I have no idea how they did that. If you work at McKinsey or Bain or BCG, let me know how many orange cones were out there at the Bay State Marathon if there were orange cones marking every 3 to 5 yards for 13.1 miles. That's a good consulting case study for you right there. But yeah, course was great. That's the one thing I wanted to say today that I didn't say yesterday. The weather was perfect. Also just beautiful. There were some parts of the scenery there where you had the foliage and then just views of the river. Really nice. There were some parts where you were running next to the cars, but it wasn't too bad. I didn't feel like any cars were coming close to me, and because they had the cones, it was very well set up and protected. And I actually don't even know if they had the right side blocked off in some areas, because we were running on the right shoulder of the road like we do here in America, or I guess we drive on the right shoulder of the road. Technically you're supposed to run on the left, but because of the way the course set up, we were on the right. I digress. Fueling. The fueling was on point. I did the Mortons. I also did a big carb load. So the other point I wanted to say here about the fueling, orange juice. Dude, orange juice is awesome. So I had an entire Whole Foods organic orange juice that my mom got, and then I had 4 Tropicana other orange juices, and it's the same thing I did for Chicago. And that's why I like having this system, and I don't like to be super superstitious. I don't like to be superstitious about it, but if I do the same thing before a good race and the same thing before a bad race, then again, eliminate the variables. If I wear the same shorts every time or the same hat every time, again, eliminate the variables. So orange juice is what always works for me to feel fueled up and ready to go. It's a great supplement for the carbs, and of course I did the mac and cheese and the pasta before. But in race, 1 gel every 30 minutes, and that's the other thing. It can be hard to, once you start mentally losing it in a race or in a workout, to keep the fueling going, but I kept it going every 30 minutes. I ended up taking 6 gels throughout the race. So I took 1 before the start line. I also did a Morton drink before the start line. So I took 1 gel about 30 minutes before the start line, and then I did 5 throughout. I did 2 caffeine and 3 regular from Morton. So shout out Morton, shout out Torque too. I didn't take any Torque yesterday. All right, last one here. Last thing I learned from the race. This is a good one. Shoes don't matter, except when they do. So yeah, this is what I was thinking about yesterday. I was not thinking about my shoes pretty much for the entire race. I mean, I saw some people running. There's a couple running who are both wearing Fast R3 who passed me at the end, which is beast, dude. Absolute beast. Camera died. Or the battery died. I don't think I charged it the entire time I was in Lowell, so it was bound to die. I was also shooting on the GoPro for most of the time, and I really like how the footage turned out shooting on the GoPro around town. It's a really nice camera once you get it dialed in. The GoPro is, now it's afternoon time where we get the shadow of our big tree right on the street here. And yeah, I have this box of shoes because I'm about to film a reel for Instagram on the GoPro. Let me know tomorrow if you, or hopefully you will watch the video tomorrow. Let me know once that Instagram reel goes up. It's going to be Max Cushion shoes, what you think, because we're trying all new different stuff on the reels on Instagram, just because there's so much untapped potential there. Our posts are doing well, our reels, not so much. Barrett and Grant chefed up that Movie Paces one last week, which was pretty funny, and that did well. And today, I actually think, speaking of the GoPro, I'm going to shoot something on this, do a top 5 Max Cushion shoes. But I was on number 10 here of 10 things I learned from my marathon. The lighting before was definitely better. I don't like when it's all backlit like this, man. It's all good. Yeah, 10 things I learned. I was talking about the shoes, and the shoes don't matter except when they do. And what I was going to say is, I didn't think of the shoes once during that race. And no, the camera's bowing down to the mileage again. Actually, maybe that's an exaggeration. You can't not think of your shoes once for 26.2 miles. I think I thought of them probably 4 or 5 times just checking in. But yeah, they didn't help me and they didn't hurt me. And none of the things on race day that I did leading up into the race necessarily helped me or really hurt me. It was just about race day execution. And that's one of the goals of running marathons, and that's what I have been able to do with my training system, with my fueling system, just eliminating a lot of the variables. And the biggest variable yesterday was my mind, which I did not eliminate. Well, I don't want to eliminate my mind, but eliminate the negative mental space I was in, or the uncertain mental space I was in. And that's hard. There's a different type of training that needs to go in for that. But with the shoes, I raced in the Puma Fast R3. They were fantastic. It's a great shoe. It's the fastest shoe on the market. But if you're not running your strongest, you're not going to get the benefit out of them. So, yeah, I didn't get the benefit out of them. They didn't hurt me either. I do think potentially one way they may have hurt me is in the back half of the race when I was mentally jogging it in and physically not running anywhere near race paces. I was basically running my daily paces at the end, around 7 flat for some of those miles. Not the best shoe for that, and I could feel myself getting beat up by the end. 2 hours and 40 minutes is just a long time. 2 hours and 42 minutes is a long time to be spending in a race shoe like that. That is so aggressive, man. The Alphafly is a much better shoe for being out there for longer. So that's where I felt maybe it was hurting me. But at that point, I don't know. I'm not too worried about picking a race shoe so that my jogging paces when I'm having a bad race feel better. So yeah, the shoes don't matter really, except when they do, which is if you're running your absolute strongest, if you're at tip of the spear peak performance, you can actually get that 3 to 4% benefit out of the shoe. And I feel for the Fast R3, once I'm dipping down to 540, that is where I feel the benefit. And there were a few parts of that race where I was surging. There were a few miles, and I had a good stretch of the race from mile 10 to 12 where I caught up with this pack of guys. They were wearing Tracksmith Boston gear. I think it said Boston Hares on the back, and they're pacing for 2:33. And I caught up with them, and I was surging. I had to hit some 5:30 pace for 400 meters, 800 meters, because they were about, 30 seconds ahead of me or so, or maybe 20 seconds ahead of me. I wasn't really counting, but I had to surge pretty strong to catch up with them. And those when I was running my best miles. And at those paces, when I was surging, when I was popping off the front of the Fast R3, I was getting all the benefit from that shoe. But when I was running even a 550, for me personally, I don't feel that I get all the benefit of the Fast R3. The Alphafly feels better for me at 550. The Puma Deviate Nitro Elite 3 feels better for me at 550. Fast R3, it's really, man, that sub 230 marathon pace. So when I do finally crack it, it will probably be in that shoe. I feel like I need to redeem that shoe now, race again in that shoe and that kit to have a bad race. I don't like being superstitious with stuff, and I get so in my head with, okay, before these races, or if I'm doing something big, if I listen to this song or if I wear this, then it's associated with that all the time. But I want to wear that exact kit again and have a good race. And this is the thing I was thinking about the racing and just the decision whether to race or not. And this is the last thing I'll say, because yeah, I think my mom was asking me about it. I know some other people were saying you have all the right to push the race back, but just to be brutally honest here, it was tough, and I think I did feel some pressure to do the race from the chorus of voices saying I don't race enough. And it's so funny seeing the comments on today's video, and it's 99% supportive, and I thank you all so much for all the support. But it's so funny seeing the comments of some people saying, just have fun, enjoy running, get back to what you love about running. And then other people saying you need to race more. And those things are always at odds, because racing isn't why I got into running. I got into running for the health benefits. I got into it for the mental benefits. I like the performance aspect of racing and of pushing myself and of getting better and of seeing myself progress. But those two things are always at odds. And I just find it funny that I raced because I said, you know what? I would feel like I weren't racing enough if I dropped out and I were taking the easy way out. But I do a race, and then people tell me I need to race more. It's a keyboard elite type stuff right there. I literally raced. Talking about race more. Anyway, I think that's all I have for you today. I had a few more takeaways. I'll probably save them from another video, and I'm sure I will have more lessons and learnings throughout this next week or next few weeks. And I mean, I'm still sharing lessons and learnings from my bad 2022 marathon. I'm still sharing lessons and learnings from my great Chicago marathon last year. I get lessons and learnings from basically every single run I do. So I will continue to share about the journey. I appreciate everyone who has been supporting it, and I will be back tomorrow with another video. Yeah, one more thing. I just want to say thank you again. Thank you, man. It's only, I don't even know, lunchtime right now, and there's 200 plus comments on my videos, just everyone supporting, being appreciative. And yeah, I was having a rough time mentally after that race, and it's just awesome seeing it. So thank you to everyone supporting. I really appreciate it. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to continue getting after it, grinding, training, racing, trying to take it to the next level, bettering my personal best. Not just about the time, my personal best, my process. The mileage grind never stops. We've been singing that ABC song a lot in my house recently. Roni is obsessed with it. She's almost 2. She actually calls it ABCB. And when she sings it, she'll say A, B, C, B, A, B, C. So she doesn't quite have it down, so I'll have to teach her, and I'll teach her the right way. I'll sing it to her, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. But you know what comes after L? This is fresh on my mind because I've been singing the ABC song. What comes after L is M's. So we just took the L today. I mean, we got M's coming. A lot of people think M stands for millions. It actually stands for... Do I even have to say what M stands for? Do I have to say it? Mileage!